Welcome to Egg Money Quilts. I'm Eleanor Burns. The news was so depressing in the 1930s. Banks had failed, people were out of work, dust storms wreaked havoc on the Great Plains, and the Lindbergh baby had been kidnapped. It was just endless tragedy. Well, nobody wanted to buy a newspaper until they decided to print weekly quilt patterns and hope the customers would buy a newspaper for something other than depressing bad news. Well, this is a sampler made from newspaper patterns. It's just a beautiful sampler quilt made with 34 different blocks, and they're made out of feed sacks. Now, this is Dove in the Window newspaper pattern from the Quilt of the Week. Well, the quilt maker made it just like the pattern here in popular pink and blue. It's just a great block. And the second block I have is the Dahlia. Now, the Dahlia found a prominent place in the very center of the quilt right here in peach green. It's wonderful. Well, Cletus Hofer sent me these patterns of the week, and I just love them. You know, it's amazing. The maker even got this quilt together because the blocks are all different sizes. Well, they would often try a pattern just to see if they liked it well enough to make a whole quilt out of it. Now, this sampler quilt was made recently by Joyce Duarte with blocks of different sizes and all out of old feed sacks. Well, the backgrounds on her blocks are all different hues of white cut from various feed sacks. And then Joyce pieced her outside border with 2 3/4 inch squares using scraps left over from her blocks. Well, the feed sacks came from an old family friend, Zella Westmoreland C. Now, she grew up in Twitty, Texas, and her future husband drove from Oklahoma in his custom cruiser to work on Zella's father's farm. Well, what a surprise to meet his bride. Zella's grandmother taught her to quilt when she was just 10 years old, and she enjoyed her hobby to the wonderful old age of 88. Today we're going to sew together Sampler 2 with different sizes of blocks. Join me. Today is the day we get to sew together Sampler 2 queen size quilt. Now, if you've been making these blocks with me, I bet you've been wondering how we would ever fit all of these odd size blocks together. Oh, you are going to be glad that somebody figured it out for you. Well, basically, there are 3 major sections to this quilt. This one, it's obvious, is section 1. And then we're just going to call this one section 2. We've got some straight lines. And this one is section 3. Believe it or not, they fit perfectly and seams locked together. Let's just start up here. These blocks, if you finish them, were 12.5 inches or 12-inch finish size. 2 together is 24 inches. You got to keep up with me. And so you're going to take 4 6.5-inch friendship block squares, sew them all together so you get that 24 inches. Christian cross, oh, was that odd one? It finished at 9.5 inches. So we made it large enough to fit on a queen size bed, and to give you a resting spot for your eyes, we use 2 9.5-inch squares to set together your 2 Christian cross. Okay, so 9.5 and 9.5, it's going to end up being 18.5. It's the math right here. Dresden plate is 18.5 inches. Mathematically, it should all fit together. And then when you get those rows done, press the seams towards the outside edge. Okay, section 1 is easy. How about section 2? We're going to start out with the largest one, with the Old Maid's Puzzle. These were basically 12-inch blocks as well, 12-inch finish size, and this makes such a nice chain going through there. Well, on the top, we did 3 of the friendships, 6, 12, 18, and for that resting spot for your eyes, this is just a 6.5-inch square so that they all end up being 24 inches. And then this down here, if this is easy, it's basically just two 12.5-inch blocks with two setting squares so that you can make one large square out of it. So all three of these units together, you've got it all lined up. This fits pretty good, doesn't it? It's like a work of art. Okay, now we're going to start with the peony. Now, these were all 12-inch blocks as well. And you remember, if you didn't want to do that applique, you didn't need to. You could just go ahead and make that fourth block in there. Has a completely different look. Well, the peony, each one ends up being 12, 24, and then 36 over here. With three wedding ring in a row, it's also 36 inches. This is going to go good. Now, you got a bonus block. You got so many blocks to work with. If you want, you don't have to do double axe head. If you want to put two grandmother's flower garden, that's okay by me. So you can just change the whole look of it. Well, these all end up being 36 inches across, but that old Christian cross, that's throwing us off again. Once again, it's the 9.5-inch with the 9.5-inch squares, but at 18.5 inches, let's see. That old road to California didn't quite add up. So we had to put that little framing border around the outside of road so it would fit in with all of these blocks. Well, let me just sew these together and I'll show you how to finish it. This is Sue's twin size sampler too, and it's just beautiful. I love her cherry red background. Oh, it's very bright. And then she used a lot of soft floral prints for her patchwork, and look at this. She has some really cute checks and a fussy cut right in the middle of Road to California. Well, as you can see, it's a lot narrower than that queen size quilt. It starts right up here with Christian cross. Remember how Christian cross actually had 4 spacers, 4 blocks that were the same to make more width? Well, these are just all in a straight line. And then down here, we also had 2 12.5-inch just plain blocks to make this wider. Well, now it's all patchwork in there. Just wonderful. Well, she sent this quilt out to our friend Sandy Thompson, who has a long arm quilting machine. Now, I also prefer to quilt with my credit card, but you can do a lot of free motion quilting just on your regular sewing machine. Take a look at this one. This is just such a nice, simple motif. Little hearts. It's definitely free motion. You can continuous line stitch that. Really cute. And then there's a little leaf in this strip going along here, and the heart is really cute. It's a heart feather, and then it has cross-hatch quilting going through it. Really cute. Well, Sandy did a beautiful job, and you can do a lot of things on your own machine. You just need to start with the right stencil. Now, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to quilt a Christian cross. This stencil is perfect for the corners as well as the side triangles. I'll show you how it fits, but I have this one positioned right now. I've actually lined up the edge of my stencil right in the border, and I started marking with this marking pen. I'm just going to actually disappear this marking pen in the end, but it's a dark blue so that I can see where I'm supposed to be stitching. Let me just run it along there. Okay, I think I have marked everything. So just take it away, and this is what this corner is going to look like. We can do a continuous line and get a really nice motif. Well, from the same stencil, if we just turn it the other way, we can line up the edges of the stencil with the triangle, and then it makes an even larger one. It's perfect. Well, let me show you. I already have my darning foot on. This is what a darning foot looks like. This is an open toe darning foot, and I'm just going to get on my gloves. This is going to help. These gloves actually have rubberized tips on them. They're comfortable, they stretch on there, and the whole idea is to just help you move that quilt around. I already dropped my feed dogs, and that means that these feed dogs right here are down. You can see that you can slide your quilt. There's nothing that's going to catch them. You don't set a stitch length because you do the stitch length. It just depends on how fast you move. Okay, raise your presser foot so you can get your quilt underneath, and let's make sure you have lots of freedom. That's the biggest part. You have to have your surface flat and free. You place your hands in this position so you can go ahead and move your quilt. Oh my gosh, a little glass of wine would be fine too, just to help you out. Okay, I'm just going to start right here. I'm just going to drop my foot. I'm going to head over in this way, go up along here, and go along. The idea is to trace out your design, and if you can stitch it continuously, it's perfect. Okay, first thing I want to do is just do needle down, have my needle in, and I have this really neat locking stitch on here. So now that I have my needle down, I'm just going to lock. It goes up and down, up and down. It's locking it on the back side. I'm heading this way, so I'm just going to hold on to these threads, just hold my quilt flat, and just head over. I'm going to get on that line. The faster you sew, the better. Okay, now I'm just going to stop with my needle down, take this old thread, cut it, get rid of it so it doesn't ever get in the way. Okay, your hands are in a triangle shape. Keep your eye on that line. The idea is that you don't turn the position of your quilt. You keep the top at the top, and you just always follow that line as best as you can. But the thing is, you know, if you go ahead and spritz out this line in the end, nobody knows if you stayed on it or not. And so you just keep on, keep that eye, keep your line in that line, and just step on it. And the more relaxed you are, the better. Okay, I'm nearly the whole way around. And then whenever you get back to where you started, I think I'm just going to stop right here and show you. Whenever you get back to where you started, I still have a little bit more, but I'm going to show you. You lock your stitch in place, and then you cut your threads. And this machine has a really great thread cutter, so that's what it looks like. Now, you're going, oh my gosh, I've got those blue lines on there. How am I going to get rid of them? So you just spritz it, get it a little wet. I'm really getting it a lot wet. I'm soaking my whole quilt. But those lines will disappear. You can see they already disappeared. Now I've got to get rid of the water. Well, I'm just going to set up and show you how to do the scallop binding. Don't be a rotten egg. You just get right on that bias binding because it's not that hard to do. Start with a 16-inch width piece of fabric, and then take your 6 by 24-inch ruler, find the 45-degree line on it, and line it up on that straight selvage edge. Okay, and you're going to see at a 16-inch width, the ruler just fits. All right, hold that down, cut off that whole corner at 45 degrees. You can cut this up, or you can just get rid of it. Now, the strips for the bias are cut at 2 inches wide. So you're literally going to measure the outside edge of your quilt and just continue to cut enough 2-inch bias strips until it goes the whole way around, plus a little extra. Well, I think I've got 2 strips. I'm going to show you how to sew them together. This is always the tricky part for me. I always want to lay it out. Now I want that to go in a straight line. This is how I have to do it. You want it to go in a straight line. So if you lay it out like that, you see that when it's sewn, it's going to be straight. Then take it and fold it right sides together. And it's interesting because you've got that tip hanging out on one side and a tip on the other. So get that lined up like that. It is sewn together with a 1/4-inch seam. So just let me line that up and sew that together. You know, I worry so much about getting all of this done perfect, but you know, sometimes you don't even notice it. Okay, so there it is like that. That's how it looks. Let's open it up. I get to look first. Ooh, pretty good. Good straight line there. Now, all you want to do with this strip is press that diagonal sewing open. Press it open like this. How about a little steam? And then these strips are all pressed wrong sides together into long pieces. Ooh, like that. Just set it with the seam. And then I just roll it up and it's ready to go. Well, I do have a binding already started on this one. It's all rolled up nice and tidy. I just want to go from this point. So let me show you. I am marking for a scallop on this. And I have the neatest little scallop. It's really quite simple to use. This is the easy part. So just take your 6 by 24 inch ruler and find the diagonal line going down through the corner. I'm just going to line up corner to corner through here, up through here. Take a hair marker to mark a diagonal line because this is the starting of your corner. And then once you have that diagonal line drawn, take this really cool scallop and drop it on there and position the tip of it right on that corner. And now just mark right along the scallop like that. I am daring with this permanent marker, aren't I? Well, now I want to put another scallop over to the center. And so I'm just going to move my ruler, line that up right with the very center of the triangle so that I know how far over my scallop needs to go. And then once you position that scallop on there, okay, I see I'm a little short. So I've got to make that up. I'm just going to start right here, and when I get down to the center, I'm just going to do a little scooching along with my scallop and widen that whole middle part of it till I get right over here. And you won't even notice it once you get your whole quilt lined up. Okay, let me just take this one, line that up with the edge, just slide that along, and mark all 4 sides just like that. Great. Now comes the binding. Now you are going to put your walking foot back on your sewing machine. Oh, I have my 1/4 inch foot on here. So just go ahead, remove the 1/4 inch foot, slip on the walking foot. I always feel like I need to have couple of hands when I put my walking foot on. Use 3.5 stitch length or 3.0, that's good. And you want to move your needle so that you have about a 1/4 inch seam. I'm just going to slide mine over, it's good. Yeah, I already started right in the corner with my binding. I'm going to put the raw edge right against my marked edge. And it's really best if you do a little stay stitching right along your line, and that will work great. Okay, let me get this all lined up here. Lift your foot. Oh, let's see. I've got a perfect way to line that up. I can just see right through my foot. Okay, now whenever you put your binding on, you want to keep your raw edge right against that line, right against that stitching, and ease the binding in. You don't want to be stretching out your binding or else it'll never wrap around. And coming right up into the corner, right up here. Now, I worried about that. Oh my gosh, how am I going to do that pivot? But really, it is just as easy as can be. So whenever you get right up into that pivot point, all you need to do is just stop with your needle down right there, raise your foot, pivot to the next side, and then just kind of swing this binding around, keep it tucked in there nice, and just start sewing right off of it, keeping that raw edge right on the line. I am just about around that curve, and I'll show you how it looks. Okay, I'm just going to cut my threads. You know me, I always have to get my work done pretty quick. Okay, now all you're going to do is just cut right up to that stitching. Make sure you have your backing out of the way. Cut up to the stitching. works great. Just take this and get rid of it. Here, I'll show you right up here on this one. Sewed this one earlier. You can see the corner, how you go around it, went around the curve. I need pins right now. So when you pull the binding around to the back, because I like to sew this down by machine, I'm going to take and pull the binding past my previous line of stitching. Now actually this is just great to sit and hand stitch this too. It works wonderful. But right here at this little point, then pull your binding so that it covers up your previous line of stitching and put a pin right there. Right through, right here, pull it over your previous line and just keep on pinning. Ooh, I am good. You know, actually, I like to sew this down with hand wax thread, and then you don't get any tangles in your thread. It's perfect. Just do a little hidden stitch. All right, I have about 4 pins from the wrong side, and then you can see this is how it looks from the right side. It's just a nice narrow border, and it's a wonderful finish. Exciting. The women of the 1930s had a number of choices for marking quilts. Well, these are perforated quilting patterns copyrighted in 1934 from St. Louis from Grandma, maybe Grandma Dexter. Well, the quilter put the pattern in place, and then she pounced with a special blue stamping powder through the perforations onto the quilt. Well, the instructions say to set the powder by ironing. Because the blue worked well for light fabrics, they also used cocoa. I've also heard they dusted with flour for dark fabrics, just perfect. And then the markings just dusted away. Well, the most popular method of marking was with a pencil or a chalk. Well, I have a treasure of homemade stencils just for tracing. These are from my great Aunt Mary. She lived on a farm in Pennsylvania, and they've been cut from tin. You know, they're actually very durable, and they're referred to as running patterns. This one is from aluminum. Well, I'm sure many dedicated husbands made these for their wives. And then this quilter turned her cardboard templates into artwork. Oh, they're so neat. I love the leaf, and then there's princess feathers. There's a butterfly that's for the center of a block. Just wonderful cables, corners, perfect. Such fun they had. Well, I love the bright fabrics and the tiny prints from the 1930s. But if you prefer some other fabrics, I have some treats for you. Diana Edgman's quilt takes you back to the 1860s in rich tones of brown, red, and blue. Oh, it looks very scrappy with different backgrounds in the blocks. Now, she was creative with 2 garden walk blocks side by side, and then she went totally scrappy with Christian cross. Well, Diana switched places with double wedding ring and peony, and just look at the corners. You know, she made 2 checkerboard patches instead of 2 plain blocks with rocky road and turkey tracks. You know, Diana is a long arm quilter. She had a great time with stippling and free motion quilting. It's just beautiful. Well, now we're going to move fast forward to the contemporary times. Lois Bresloff is the queen of bright batik. This is her Sampler 1 lap robe with scallop border and all its glory. Now, I think this fabric in the border was no doubt her inspiration piece, with purple, red, yellow, aqua, and green pulled out. Now, my favorite block is the peony in Kool-Aid red and bright green. While Lois used her extra block on the back for her label, she named her quilt Up, Up, and Away. And you know, this quilt does remind me of colorful hot air balloons. It's just perfect. Well, this is Lois's Sampler 2, also in batiks, but it's not quite so bright. She called it egg money for stained glass. Lois is always spending her money on more fabric. Well, the background fabric reminds me of the ocean. Oh, beautiful and blue. It's very aquamarine. Now, Lois fussy cut the fabric from the border for the center of the Dresden plate, and then again in Road to California. Well, my favorite is Grandmother's Flower Garden block. You know, I'm thinking I'm just drawn to red. I love it. Now, no credit card quilting for Lois. She does her own quilting. It's beautiful. Well, in the 1930s, life was simple. People neighborly, and quilts not only were useful, but they were also an extraordinary expression of imagination. Bring the simple life to your sewing room. Put your imagination to work and enjoy making your egg money quilt.